Good morning. Welcome back. Got to apologize. You got me right before I go ahead and shower and shave and do all the good stuff. So my face-to-face class later on this morning gets a nice clean shaven. Unfortunately, you get the gruff. But that's all right. That's all right. I loved a lot of your topics. A lot of you had really good topic choices. I got those back to you this morning. Unfortunately, if you didn't get it to me yet, I do need to see it. Definitely have to see a statement before you speak. Unfortunately, you're not going to be eligible for that 15 points because it needed to be in by midnight last night. So, as you're now starting to put your speeches together, one of the things you'll notice if you look at the sample outlines is we're basically the same as the informative speech. You can even use that first attachment that I sent when talking about informative speaking. And now what I mean is like the organization of your outline. Okay, you're still going to have an introduction with an attention gainer and preview. You're still going to have two main points. But this time, it'll be 2 reasons why we should agree with you, or 2 reasons why we should take that action you want us to take. And then a conclusion with a review and some form of closure. All right. So pretty much everything's going to be the same, except one thing though. See, now what your goal is to influence your audience. You want your audience to think the way you do, feel the way you do, share the same opinion or idea, or actually get people to do something you want them to do. Well, in order to do that, you need to establish a believability. A believability in the eyes of your audience that who you are and what you're saying is true, or is right, or is correct. And when you establish a believability in the eyes of your audience that who you are and what you're saying is true, right, and or correct, you then establish credibility. Credibility is vital in order to influence the audience you're speaking with. Okay? Having that credibility, that believability, that who you are and what you're saying is true, right, or correct is important. Not only for a persuasive speech, but anything that you're trying to influence or persuade people. It could be a one-on-one conversation. But in this case, of course, it'll be a persuasive speech. Now, in your textbook, they talk about 3 types of credibility. Now, the first type they talk about is establishing credibility based on competence, or competent credibility. Now, there are 3 key terms that go with competent credibility. And that's the wisdom, authority, and or knowledge that you demonstrate about that particular topic. That's competent credibility. For example, let's go away a little bit from public speaking, all right? You're sitting in your room, at your house, wherever you are, and you're watching me do this video in the middle of June. Why? Why in the middle of June are you taking this speech class when you should be just working 8 to 5 Monday through Friday like everybody else, so to speak? Well, here's the reason why. Is because you were influenced. Someone spoke to you. Now, it could have been a one-on-one conversation between you and, let's say, one of your parents. Maybe that one uncle or aunt who's close in age to you. Maybe it was that one high school teacher who always seemed to say the right things. Maybe it's someone you heard on a radio show or who you saw on television or in a movie. But somewhere along the line, somebody influenced you. See, we never do anything unless we're influenced by someone. Hell, I've been using the same toothpaste since I was 6 years old. Crest toothpaste. You know why? Because a commercial came on TV that said 4 out of 5 dentists recommend Crest for cavities. I've tried others. I never liked them, even though and I've only tried them once. Maybe, Aquafresh here or Colgate there. No. And I still use Crest this way. Why? Because I was influenced by that commercial. So now, who influenced you? And I'll give you an example. Okay? I'm standing in front of you right now. You're watching this video I just made for you. And I'm a long-time tenured professor at Bergen, about to begin my 23rd year at Bergen Community College. How am I here? Well, the reason why I'm here is because of my father. All right? I came from one of the lowest, poorest sections of Jersey City. All right. My mother graduated from Snyder High School. My dad, on the other hand, dropped out of Dickinson High School when he was 16 years old. I was the first person in my father's side of the family to actually go to college and to graduate from college. Why? Well, because growing up, my dad would always tell me about the importance of education. Now, when you look at these three terms, wisdom, authority, and knowledge, it wasn't that my dad knew what it was like because he had a college degree. It was actually the opposite. So my dad drops out of high school. A couple years later, he goes into the Navy. Still never even got his equivalency. All right? Comes out of the Navy, starts working for a trucking company. And because I came along in 1965, my father then had to move not as a driver, but into the front office so he could make some more money. But my dad, even though he had a terrific reputation in the trucking industry, working for one company for 20 years and then moving on to another company he worked his last 16 years, he had a great reputation. Yet, because of no education, as he would be here, he would watch younger, more educated people go up. And he would always have to stay steady. There weren't that many promotions and salary increases because he just didn't have the education. So my father would tell me about the importance of education. I would listen to him. And when I looked at him with that believability that my father knows what he's talking about. And so here I am. And the thing is, I wish my siblings would have listened to him. Okay? Because I have 3 younger siblings. I'm the oldest. And up until my sister died a few years ago, for like 11 straight years, I made more money than my 3 siblings combined. Now, I know money is not the singular thing about success, but when your mother graduates from Snyder High School and then 3 months later has a baby, and your father drops out of Dickinson High School and never gets his equivalency, yeah, it says something. And you know why? Because my father influenced me. And it was due to me looking at him with competent credibility. Now, let's go back to speeches, public speaking. Bergen Community College has done very well since I've been there with bringing in guest speakers. We've had some of the best guest speakers you can imagine. In 2005-2006, during that school year, Dr. John Yassine, who still teaches English basic skills at the college, but Dr. Yassine has also done extensive work over the last 25, 30 years in hip-hop culture in America. He's actually given presentations around the country based on his studies of hip-hop culture. So in 2005-2006, he receives a grant. And he brings a speaker series to our student center where he had a bunch of speakers who would come in over the course of the school year who would talk about hip-hop culture. Well, hip-hop isn't exactly the music you're going to find on my phone. All right? Yeah, there's going to be some Run DMC, some Beastie Boys, but basically rap hip-hop is not exactly my genre of music, although I'd never fault anybody. You know, it might not be mine favorite, but I would never fault anybody for what they listen to. But on one particular day, he had a speaker coming in. Now, the title of the speech was The History of Hip-Hop, Where It Began and Where It's Going. And because of who the speaker was, I was there front row center, my mouth closed and my eyes and my ears wide open. And the reason why is the guest speaker that day was none other than a gentleman by the name of Grandmaster Flash. Now, for those who don't know rap hip-hop, not figuratively, but literally, Grandmaster Flash and his group, the Furious Five, created the music format called rap, which evolved into hip-hop. And while in the 70s, when New York discos were doing this to Saturday Night Fever, he and his group were trying to get radio airplay, first in Brooklyn and then in Manhattan, on radio stations that just were ignoring it because it was this edgy urban sound. And, you know, he talked about this, and I knew who he was. So when it came to competent credibility, if there's anybody, in my opinion, who had the wisdom, authority, and our knowledge to talk about the history of hip-hop where it began, it was Grandmaster Flash. So now to add credibility to Dr. Yassine, a year after being in our student center, Grandmaster Flash and his group, the Furious Five, became the first ever rap hip-hop artist inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Now, of course, this year you're going to see Jay-Z, you're going to see LL Cool J. Of course, in the past, we've seen the Beastie Boys, Run DMC, NWA, Public Enemy, yet there was the first. There had to be one that was first, and that was Grandmaster Flash. Well, now, there are people who want to influence you who do feel they have knowledge and wisdom, yet it's not coming across to their audience, but they do have something. They have a natural ability to be able to get you to believe what they're saying and almost hold you in the palm of their hands. And that natural ability is when you can establish credibility based on charisma. Okay? Now, there's 4 key terms that go with charisma. There's appealing, concern, enthusiastic, and sincere. And it's 1, 2, 3, or a combination of all 4 that helps to make for a charismatic speaker. And it's no mistake that you take out the I, the S, and that last A, and you get the word charm. Because a charismatic speaker will charm the hell out of you. Now, to give you an example of how you're influenced based on charisma, let's look at some of the last couple of presidents. Okay? You talk first Barack Obama and then Donald Trump. One's a far-left Democrat, one's a far-right conservative, yet both of them had rarely or barely served at all, and in Donald Trump's case, had never served an elected office. But Barack Obama, who barely served his first term as a state senator before running for U.S. senator. And then you always serve a 6-year term as a U.S. senator. He was a U.S. senator for 1.5 years before he announced his candidacy for president. So he barely had any time as an elected official before becoming president. And then Donald Trump had never. So how did both of these guys with so little experience both become president? Well, it's because they were able to use charisma. And when you look at these 4 terms, both men had a lot of those terms generated in the eyes of their audience, that they were the right person to vote for, and that's what happened. But let's get to something else, okay? Now, as you can see, even though I've got a little bit of COVID weight, no, I've actually got a lot of COVID weight, I still have a chest that's larger than the average male's, okay? My chest, my shoulders, even somebody commented about it on Sunday. And there's a reason for that, okay? There's a reason for that. When I was around 10, 11, 12 years old, I would get picked on because I was a little chubby. But then it was like around 8th grade, it was like 1978, as I was about to start 8th grade, I had a really good Pop Warner season, and I had also gotten taller. And I'd gotten thinner. You know how some kids, when they get taller, they thin out even though they're chunky? But I still wanted to go further. I wanted to go further. I needed something. And it was in 1978, around this time, we had, of course, HBO. HBO had just come to our house in 77. And there was a movie. There was a movie that I sat and watched. And what it was a documentary. It was a documentary that was chronicling the 1975 Mr. Olympia bodybuilding competition. And the focus of this documentary was on the man who was going for his 6th consecutive championship. And it was widely rumored, that did come true, that he was going to retire at the end of this competition. Now, this guy really got me. I mean, he was the cockiest son of a bitch I'd ever seen in my life. He was so confident in his abilities. He would psych out his opponents. And at 28 years old, I thought he was everything. Now, I couldn't pronounce his last name. It was something like Schwarzenegger or Schwarzenu, or I don't know. All I needed was his first name, Arnold. And Arnold Schwarzenegger, in 1978, when I watched the movie Pumping Iron, had such a profound influence on me, and he charmed the living hell out. Hey, Louis, he's talking to Lou Ferrigno. Louis, you know I am the best in the world, Louis. You know you can't beat me. And it's just, oh my God, he's just getting in this guy's head. And he totally did. He totally psyched the guy out. And he had such supreme confidence in himself. So that's when I saw that movie. I saw it again. got my dad to buy me a bench, and then, of course, when I became a freshman in high school, right after freshman football was over, I went right into the weight room. I wasn't a wrestler, and I started lifting weights hard. And as you can see, if you go to my YouTube channel, where you're seeing this, but if you go to the first video I ever posted, I had posted 5 years ago a promotion for a fundraising event we did at the college. And you'll see at the age of 50, I was still putting up 315. Well, it would be 315 if it was on a regular bench. It was on a universal. But there's 3 big plates on each side, and I pump it out 8 times. So even at the age of 50, if I were to do it once, I could get up close to 400 pounds. Why? Because of Arnold. That's charisma. Finally, you can earn credibility just simply by being who you are. Just simply who you are allows you to influence people, and that's establishing credibility based on character. Now, the key term there pretty much is reputation. Just simply who you are allows you to influence people. Now, where you see this a lot is when you have something called a celebrity spokesperson. If there's a TV commercial and some famous celebrity is pushing a product, well, they do that because you look at that person and say, well, if that person's using that product, it must be good, and then you go and buy it or you order it or whatever it is that you do. Okay? Probably my favorite example is, well, one that you guys would be familiar with. There is another example that goes back in time, but let me just talk about a current example. Is right now there's a product that if you're up at 3 o'clock in the morning, you'll see this infomercial on several channels. It's a product that's been in an infomercial for 20 years. And it's had several different incarnations. Like every 1 or 2 years, they remake a new one. And of those 20 years, one particular person has been in all the infomercials. It's a home exercise product. And in the last 20 years, it is like the top rated, biggest selling item in the history of infomercials. And the reason why is because the person who's been in these infomercials for 20 years is the person that really does sell this product. And this home gym, and who's been in that infomercial for the last 20 years, is none other than a guy by the name of Chuck Norris. Now, some of you may or may not recognize the name, okay? The reason why people buy this product because of Chuck Norris is because Chuck Norris is 81 years old and can still kick everybody's ass. Okay, for those who don't know who he is, karate champion, worked under the tutelage and learned from the greatest of all time. Bruce Lee was one of his students. As a matter of fact, Bruce loved Chuck so much, he put him into a movie called Fist of Fury, and Bruce and Chuck have this fantastic, probably, in my opinion, the greatest movie fight of all time at the Roman Coliseum in the movie Fist of Fury. And then, of course, Chuck went on to his own grandeur of big box office smashes in the 80s. And then in the 90s, he went to TV. And even though Saturday night isn't the most watched TV night of the week, for 8 consecutive years, he had the #1 rated show on Saturday night with Walker, Texas Ranger over on CBS. And then, of course, the infomercials for this home gym. And it sells is because people are like, well, Chuck Norris uses it and look at what he does and look what he can do. I'm going to go buy it. And that's why it's still a very successful product. All right, so that's credibility. So now you have the attachment, you have your assignment. It is your last 15-point assignment for the semester. Remember, we're almost done with the 5th week here. So get that to me by tomorrow at 8 p.m. Continue working on your speeches, and I'll be sending one more video tomorrow as a final wrap-up before your speeches are due next week. And I'll tell you next week what day your speeches are due. All right? Have a good one, and we'll see you soon. There we go.